So I'm the director of Lee Community Gardens, and I'm a member of the Lee Greener Gateway Committee. So this class is being hosted by those two organizations and the library, of course. And one of the things that I'm interested in as a community gardener, we grow food for people and pollinators, is how to maintain a nutrient cycle. A nutrient cycle is where you have, I have my little cheat sheet here. It's what some people call a circular ecosystem or regenerative economy, where instead of waste being removed and taken away somewhere else, waste is used in the place where it's created. And the way that nature does it is it's like you have a plant and it feeds an insect, and the insect feeds a bird, and the bird feeds somebody else, and then that plant dies, that insect dies, that bird dies, and most of this all happens within a very small area. And when they die, these microbes and fungus and all these kinds of things eat that decomposing plant or animal matter, and out of that, a new plant, which feeds a new insect, which feeds a new bird or animal, they're all continually revitalized through the decomposition process. So what I like to try and do as a gardener, as an environmentalist, as someone who cares about restoring and regenerating our local ecosystem, is to educate people on how to take something that's considered waste and not waste it. So composting is one of the most incredibly forgiving and easy ways to do that in our own environment. So for any of us, whether you have an apartment with no yard, there's still ways to do that. And if you have a yard and you have all the things that go along with that, like all the lawn waste and things like that, or if you're a human being that eats food and vegetables and fruits and all those types of things, then you're going to have some kind of waste. There's just always something that you're going to want to throw away. Now in Massachusetts, our waste is now having to be shipped. Is it now being shipped out of state? Yeah. We don't have room anymore. We don't want to, ruin our beautiful state, so we ship our waste out to some other state that supposedly has room for it. So the more we can do to not add to that waste stream, the better. The other thing is that these organic materials, vegetables and lawn clippings and all the plant matter that kind of gets created and then eventually dies or gets used up, or there's scraps and things like that, all of that, if that gets thrown into regular trash, it creates methane gas or methane gas, which in turn adds to global warming. So there's really no reason to put that kind of stuff in the trash. It makes things smell, it makes things messy, and it's just also a waste of resources. So I always say, just look at nature, look how nature does things. Let's try to emulate that to the best of our ability. So if you are somebody that has a lawn or potted plants or any of that kind of thing, you will find yourself buying fertilizer, buying potting soil, buying all this other stuff. When you compost, you save a lot of money on that. So that's one big reason. It feeds the soil. So a lot of us are hearing now about, if you're interested in this, there's been a lot of documentaries that have come out about the importance of soil for not only agriculture, but just for carbon sequestration and all this type of thing. Composting really, really helps with the soil, and I'll show you a number of ways. It's amazing how doing the laziest amount of composting that you can possibly do is actually so good for so many different things. And yeah, it's as easy as you want to make it. If you're really into the science of it and you're into making compost teas and you're into temperature regulation and turning the compost and all that kind of stuff, that's a whole nother class. You're not going to learn that here. But it's a wonderful thing if you're into it. I just, it's not what I have time for right now. So, whoops, hitting my microphone. Probably not a good idea. All right. So the best way for those of you that have yards, the laziest way to compost is literally to just leave stuff on the ground as much as you can. So under trees, under bushes, all the places that you would normally add mulch, when the leaves fall off those, leave them on the ground. When the pine needles fall down, leave them on the ground. There's really no reason to rake them up other than that somebody's going to think you're lazy if you don't. If you can handle that, it's going to be good for the soil. It's going to be easier for you, less work, less maintenance, and it's going to support those pollinators. So one good example of this is an oak tree. If you let those oak leaves lie on the ground, all the different moths and butterflies and insects that lay their eggs and all those caterpillars that hatch, they're now going to have a place to overwinter. If you take those leaves away, all those butterflies and moths and insects, they die. If they die, then you don't have the birds the next season. So, because the birds need those in order to feed their young. So that's just one simple way that, and what you'll find when you do that, when you leave the leaves on the ground like that, is they automatically decompose over time, and you're not going to have to fertilize those trees. Those leaves slowly, it's like what I call slow release nitrogen. So the other easy part of this, say that oak tree gets a dead branch, and you cut it off, and then you have to pay someone to take it away. The best thing to do with that is to cut it up into smaller pieces and just leave it on the ground. So that's going to create more nesting areas for bees and those type of cavity nesting pollinators, and it's also going to create more microbes because the different types of fungus will come to break down that wood. And you can do everything from the large pieces all the way down to the little twigs. So one of the things that I do when I'm pruning is, here's some examples of just twigs. Like this fell off of one of our white pines. So instead of picking all that up and taking it somewhere else, I just break it up and I throw it on the ground. There's an orchardist from New Hampshire that I met that is no longer with us, Michael Phillips, and he was saying that's what he does in his orchard, in his apple orchard. All the things that he prunes, he just breaks it up or takes his little clippers, drops it on the ground, and before you know, you don't even see it anymore. And what happens is a leaf will break down quicker than this, but this will break down a year, 2 years, depending on the size of it. And I let things lie as big as this. The bigger pieces, sometimes I'll just use it to border the paths in my garden. So if you don't want or can't have, for whatever reason, because you just the layout of your garden or whatever, if you don't have the ability to leave some of that larger wood, or even the smaller bits, you can create, if you have a little place that's out of the way, you can create a pile where you just put all that stuff and you just forget about it. It's hidden behind a tree or a shrub or whatever, and you just dump it over there, and over time that just keeps, you'll notice the pile, no matter how much you put on it every year, it almost stays pretty much the same size because it just keeps breaking down, and you'll find there's a lot of worms and beetles and different things underneath that. So these, in terms of yard waste, these are the easiest ways to compost, just by basically leaving everything lie or organizing as little as possible. Maybe you just have to drag thing over to a corner and leave it. Also very good for different pollinators and different animals that are going to add to your landscape, to that circular economy or that regenerative ecosystem that we talked about. So grass clipping. So if you must have a lawn, I'm totally against lawns, but if you must have a lawn, I realize there are things about lawns that are nice to have, especially if you have kids have a place to run around and all that kind of stuff. Save those grass clippings, because the grass clippings, they create this heat. I don't know if you've ever picked up clippings from a lawn after it's been mowed and it's hot. It's like, so that's all these microbes are creating all this energy and movement and things as it kind of starts to ferment and decompose. So if you add that to a compost bin or a compost pile, it adds a lot of heat to it and it speeds up the process. So even those grass clippings you can save. So what's that?
Or just leave them there in the ground?
You can. Sometimes it depends on what kind of mower you have. Some places, if you get a big wad of grass, it'll actually kill the grass underneath of it. So if you have the kind of lawnmower that chops it up real fine and somehow distributes it, then yeah, you can just leave it. I noticed that there's not, when people mow lawns now, there's not a whole lot of that grass left behind in general. So any questions about the yard waste tips? Because we're going to move on to more like kitchen scraps and things like that. But
so a lot of leaves and a lot of grass clippings, you just pile them and pile and pile them. Eventually you dig in there, it's all
exactly
black gold, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a great expression. Black gold is how compost is often referred to, because it does turn into, I didn't bring a sample with me here, but you can see like there can be a whole bunch of just messy stuff on top, branches, twigs, banana peels, whatever. And then you just stick your hand, you just push that away a little bit, you stick your hand a little bit deeper, and usually you don't even need a shovel or anything. You just stick your hand right in there, and it's just this beautiful black earth. So, and then that, if you wanted to take that and put that around your bushes and your shrubs and your things like that, that's what you do.
That's what I'm interested in, and I've never seen, after a soil test, it's like, God forbid you don't put any more compost on it. It's like, usually, almost every place I've done a soil sample or something, it's like, you need more organic matter in the soil. So compost is just right.
It does. Is that something that you do? Is that your job?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
No, very retired.
But you're doing soil.
Yeah, just starting to get my garden going and just, send a sample off to you.
Oh, yes. And they say you need more organic.
Well, in times past.
Oh, I see.
Nobody ever says you have too much compost in your
Right. Yeah, nobody ever says, oh, that's way too much. Yeah.
Other stuff, it's too acidic or something else. Yeah, do this, do that.
Whereas you can have a problem through applying too much nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium. All those things can actually be toxic. So if you apply them in their pure chemical form. So I've had amazing results in my garden just through doing these methods, and it saves a lot of time. So.
Well, and money because you don't have to buy the fertilizers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other thing that goes, so it's important to know that if you're growing blueberries or holly here in Lee, and Lee tends to have more alkaline soils because of the marble underlayment we have, then it may be hard to grow those types of plants in that type of soil, and you may need to add some amendments. If you're growing plants that are native to the area and that they don't need fertilizer, they really don't need it, unless your soil is completely hard packed clay. They don't. Then adding compost and organic matter to that would be great, but in general, it's mostly the ornamentals and the non-native plants, ornamentals and things like that need extra care and extra fertilizer. So kitchen waste. So what would you say, what kind of kitchen waste do you regularly deal with?
Eggshells, vegetables.
Vegetables mostly, yeah.
And eggshells.
Eggshells, yeah.
Coffee grounds.
Coffee grounds. Banana peels, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And even some people are saying don't put citrus in there or whatever, and I'm like, it all seems to work just fine when I do it. So now on the back of your sheet, you'll see there's a composting essentials list. This is literally just what you'll find online anywhere. It's basically you need your browns, your dry brown, cardboard twigs, shredded paper, dried grass, hay, straw, all kinds of things, right? Like that. But it's those egg cartons, those types of things. Nitrogen materials are the greens, and so that's all your banana peels. That's your, fruit, vegetable waste, coffee grounds, that kind of thing. And then water, you don't want it too wet, you don't want it too dry, but if it gets too wet, let it dry out. If it gets too dry, let it, if you've got a bin like this, leave it open during the rain or just hose it down. So, it's very forgiving. It's either of those things. The thing that you want more that's not quite as forgiving is not having enough air. So if you put a ton of wet stuff in and there's no air that can get in there, that will just make a stinky old mess. You still haven't failed. You can take that out and layer it with some dry brown kind of stuff, and it'll continue on its merry way. You won't have ruined anything. All of this is just various ways of rotting. The easiest way to rot these things is to make sure there's air. But if you find that there wasn't enough air, it's easy enough to fix. Does that make sense? And then the other thing is the heat, which you can put your compost pile in a sunny spot. You can put it in deep shade. If it's in a sunny spot and it has enough air and water, it'll go much more quickly. Also the microbes and flies and all the different things that will go in there and help that break it down. It'll just be much more favorable to them. But the shade works very well indeed. It's like if you look at wood that's lying on the ground in the forest, it's all rotting perfectly well, and it doesn't have anyone taking care of it. So if you have these different piles that you've made to take care of yard waste and things like that, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd put it in the most easiest, the most convenient place for yourself.
So probably easier not to start a pile now. It should warm out.
Yeah.
As opposed to like January.
I start at any time. Good question. It's a great question. It's just that in January, it's just it might be on top of snow. It might be, but
Same thing for inside.
yeah, absolutely. If you're inside and like in an apartment where you have do you have a porch?
I have a porch.
Yeah, so porch is good if you have an apartment. That makes it easier. I know I have family that live in Brooklyn, and they live in a big apartment building on the 10th floor, and they have compost bins in the basement where you're not allowed to put food in your garbage in New York. They have to catch you, but that's the new rules. So even in an apartment building with no porch or terrace or anything like that, you can still save your compost and put it somewhere where it will be taken away to a larger facility. So
It's funny. My grandparents were in Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Outside Boston. Right? They had trash, and they had a swill pail.
Oh. Yes.
Outside the front door, and somebody would come and collect that. I don't know, farmers or something for their animals.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Years ago, so that's coming back.
Yeah, and those still exist. There's still people that go around and collect that kind of the kind of food waste to feed to mostly pigs. Yeah. The interesting thing about that is they have to heat it. They have to actually cook it to kill anything that's in it before they can feed it to the pigs, as far as I know. I haven't looked into this recently, but...
So if we, say, get a pile started now, can we still pull good stuff out of there like in January or middle of winter? I know the process will slow down with the cold.
I usually don't do anything with it. I wait till spring. Yeah, I wait till spring. I'll give you a few tips on that as we go through these different ways of composting.
So are there any no-nos to put in your pile?
Well, as Peter was mentioning earlier, that the animal products, they generally say no dairy, no meat, no cooking oil, no like big chunks of fat, It's just, and that's, so I don't really eat a lot of those foods, like bones and things with bones in them and stuff like that. So I don't usually have an issue with that. If I just have a small bit of dairy somewhere, I mean, usually, again, I don't usually have something like that. I throw it in there, but it's more like if you have a large quantity of these things. The bones are because there are small animals that will be more attracted. So if you put these on your vegetable garden, then there'll be these little animals that want to come and find these bones. What I've noticed is sometimes we've had like a deer skull, or our dog used to love chewing on these big beef bones, and they'd end up out in the garden. And what I've noticed is that the squirrels come and gnaw on them. So they must be getting some calcium from those. So even those kind of bones, what I tend to do, we have a wood fire in the winter. I tend to throw them in the wood fire. It really depends on what animals, like if you have a problem with bears, raccoons, things like that, then you should definitely avoid putting those things in the compost. If you don't have a problem with any of those things and it's just a small amount of stuff, you're not like throwing away like pounds of it every week or something, a few bones here and there, especially, I don't think it's a problem. You might have to experiment a little bit to see if you get unwanted animals. You might not want to take that risk, so you just don't do it. The thing with those kinds of products is larger composting facilities like Meadow Farm here in Lee, they can use those products because they can dispose of them properly, or they can put them in a compost that's going to heat up enough that it's going to dissolve those things. And so you're not going to have that kind of stuff left at the end. Whereas a home composting, if you're just doing the lazy way, it takes years and years. Like I have certain parts of the garden where I've tucked like a chicken bone or something. And if I have to like redo a bed or something, I'll find this chicken bone and it still looks exactly like when I put it in there. It's not going anywhere. But I also don't have any animals coming to find it either. So I just stick it right back in and figure it'll take its time. So you have, let's just say, it's okay if I stand here? Okie doke. So I brought this. I hope it's not too smelly. It's not truly rotted yet, but this is from, a couple days of, there's an organic sandwich bag in there. There's some lettuces, some pea pods, some cauliflower leaves, some citrus, a chunk of old moldy bread. These are my greens right here. I also brought these greens. So these are weeds from my garden. This is crabgrass, but there's no seed heads on it. Perfectly acceptable green contribution to your compost. I have some grapes that I was trimming. So they have these stems that are kind of stick, but they're still very green. So I put those in the compost. I put other things that I've weeded that don't have seed heads. And if I find a seed head like this, I take it out because I definitely do not want to have, this is like barley or something, from feeding our chickens or something there. So this is all like well, the seed heads, so if you're doing the lazy composting, the seed heads will grow once you put that compost on because it's not hot enough. It's not killing those seeds. So I don't like to have to keep picking the grass. So I try to keep those out. Like if I have, like this, there's some flower stalks that I weeded. So this I would throw on a pile sort of out of the way, but in my kitchen compost, I wouldn't put these seed heads in. These are all like just hundreds of tiny little seeds. And when I put those into my kitchen compost, into the various methods that I use for my vegetable scraps, those will also find their way, whether it's an ornamental bed or a flower bed or a vegetable bed, they'll resprout. So And they can stay for a really long time until the conditions are actually absolutely perfect. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, there's no weeds here. And then you create a little furrow or something, and then they just come right out. So they're very long-lived. So there's a couple different ways that you can, I'll show you some different compost bins. So this is one, you can do a do-it-yourself one. So this one, I got a metal version of it because I just kind of so sick of plastic. And I actually found this at Car Hardware just down the road. But you can make this with a plastic bin, and you can just drill holes in the sides to let the air flow in, right? If it's a small enough bucket, then that's enough. But for something bigger like this, it's good to have a central. And this was just a piece of PVC I had extra lying around that we just drilled holes in. And I just put this here and put the lid on top. That way you have air coming through the sides, through the top, and also from the center. It's raised up above the ground. So if you were doing this with a trash can, you could just put a couple bricks under there so that any, it can drain. You'll have. Sometimes you even want to catch. I forget what they call it now.
Compost tea?
What's that? Yeah, it's compost tea. Yeah, it's basically if you put too much water in there, something that drains out the bottom, you get this beautiful kind of brown liquid, and you can use that to water your garden or your plants and things like that. So this is a really fun way to compost, and I'll show you how I would use these materials in that bin. But first of all, I want to show you something called lasagna gardening. So lasagna gardening is fabulous. Where I live, where my current vegetable garden used to be a driveway. It was pea gravel with grass growing on top of it. And it was the best place. It was a flat place where I could grow vegetables. So basically the pea gravel, though, was not very conducive to growing vegetables. So I ended up doing what's called lasagna gardening. So lasagna gardening is kind of, I brought this clear container so you could kind of see the layers. So what I did to start out with is I just took cardboard from packaging and I put like a good, I didn't just put one little piece down like that. I put in a few layers on top of that grass and on top of the pea gravel. And then I got it wet. You can see the stuff that's gotten wet and soaked a little bit. So I hosed it down, got it real wet, let it sit out in the rain. And then I created this layer of this kind of stuff. And then I put in some green stuff. And I put in like everything. I put in like old stalks from kale and collard greens and things like that. And I put a whole layer of that. And then I put another layer of brown stuff. Well, like your packaging. This is just packaging that came with something that I got in the mail. I just stick that in there. Push it down. You try to like stomp it down so there's not too much air. There'll be plenty of air in there, so you don't need too much. Oh, another layer of greens. Stick that in there. And then another layer of cardboard. So I know what I have here. This is egg cartons. Egg cartons are great. They add airspace. They're really easy. They break down really quickly. So you've got your egg carton. We'll put a few more leaves and things in there.
That's small enough you don't have to worry about air circulation.
Well, this would be, the first one that I did was about as big as this table. So I just laid everything out and I just threw everything on, and it's really fun because you can just slap everything in there, and then what happens is over time it just slowly, everything kind of decomposes, and then you can do another one on top of that. In the meantime, while it's decomposing, you can cut a hole in this, or kind of usually you have to cut a hole in it because there's a lot of cardboard, but you can plant right directly into that. Add some soil, add your plant that's not seeds, but an actual plant. And it will grow out of there, and it will also help in that decomposition process. So that first year I did it, I grew greens and tomatoes and all this kind of stuff. And I now have, over years of doing it, I have at least a foot or more of soil that I've built up over time through using this method. So yeah, so you just add some more green stuff. And also you'll notice I have paper towels and things in there. I have this big old piece of bread. And then for the very last layer, you would put another layer of cardboard on top. And then you hose the whole thing down, and you can see you can push it down quite a lot, which I usually do by stomping on it. And this can create, and you can do this, so let's say you're like me, you had this area it was just gravel, and instead of trying to dig up the gravel and somehow create soil out of that, you can just build a bed. You could even just do an 8-inch high or 4-inch high, whatever you can do on that gravel, and then you just start with this. Then as the bed gets higher, what I did is I just added more wood, so the bed I made room for more soil. If you have, like I've seen a lot of places that are trying to grow, like schools, all they have is pavement. And so they can build this right on top of the pavement. And usually you put some kind of ground cloth or something just to guard against the asphalt, and then build on top of that. But this is very good for if you don't have a lot of garden soil, or if you have a lot of invasive weeds or things like that. If you have turf grass that you don't want to, spend the time or energy digging up all the turf grass, you just put this cardboard on top, and it works wonders. The community garden that we have right now, in the fall of 2020, we had a huge space of lawn, like 50 by 28 or 30 feet. And we got big refrigerator boxes from Henry's Electric, and we covered the grass completely with these refrigerator boxes and with bags and bags and bags of maple leaves that people had collected and wanted to get rid of. And then on top, first we put the maple leaves, we spread those all around, then we put the cardboard, then we put some topsoil that was donated on top of that. And then on top of that, we built some beds. We just let that sit for over a year. And a year and a half later, we had enough soil to build raised beds in that space. So we just scooped all of that up and created paths and put all that soil into the raised beds. So it's quite a resource. Basically all that stuff was free. We didn't have to have the topsoil, but that was something that we could get donated to us. And so there's a lot of possibility with this. So with this kind of compost bucket, you just do exactly the same as you do with your lasagna garden, except you're not going to obviously plant into it. So, and the other great thing about this is they talk about how you have to turn compost all the time. With this, you don't have to turn compost because the airflow in here is all right. So it's nice if you have a lot of compost, you can do 2 of these so that you have one, you fill it up as far as you can, put the lid on it, set it aside, start another one. By the time this other one's full, this one will probably be done and you can use it. So that's I have 3 different types of composting that I do. So I just rotate between all of them, and just let them sit until they're done, and then so I'm just going to put this paper in here because otherwise, newspaper, this is the other thing that we didn't really speak about. So you can put a layer of newspaper in here on the bottom, and then you just throw all this stuff in there. What's that? Most inks right now are soy-based, so they're fine. So I'm just throwing all this stuff in here. I've been waiting to use this because I wanted to bring it here, and I didn't want to bring it when it was full of compost. So now I can use it.
If you filled that up today, set it outside.
You know, I've seen if you set it in the sun, I've heard that I've never used one exactly like this, but I've heard that it can take as little as a couple of months, you know. So I think it just depends so much on your, you know, what's happening. So I'm going to throw all this green stuff in here. You can see some of it's kind of got dried out, but I'm going to put all that. So now I have, you know, a few inches of brown stuff, a few inches of green stuff, and then I'll add some more brown stuff. And if you guys want to come up and look at this, you can. I hope I didn't make too big a mess here. Yeah, it's already, so this sinks down quite a lot. Yes. Yeah. So I would, like, not here, but but yeah, obviously, yeah. What I would do is, it's supposed to rain in the next couple of days. I'll just leave the top off of it, let it rain on it, or if I'm, depending on where I have it, I'll just hose it down. So any questions about this so far?
Moist but not wet.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's kind of an intuitive thing. You know, you kind of just, you can also smell, like sometimes if you, like I've thrown away bad hummus or something, and it's like a huge glop. And so it's good to like just sort of mix that up into things so it's not just a big wet spot that, so things like that can get pretty stinky. But if you move it around and mix it up as you put it in there, then it shouldn't smell like horrible. Right. Let me check my notes again. So you can see how you could make your own bin with a plastic trash can very easily, and for a do-it-yourself thing that works really well. For you, I don't know how big your porch is, but you could take a 5-gallon bucket, for example, drill some holes in the side, and you could put that on your back porch, and just have like a, do you know the trays that you put under plants, a plant tray? You could put a plant tray under that, catch any liquid so it doesn't mess anything up. You can use that liquid to water your house plants or your porch plants or whatever you have.
I don't have.
So yeah, well then you just pour it back in the compost.
Okay.
The even easier thing is the League Greener Gateway Committee sells small indoor compost pails, and you can just set them on your countertop or someplace easy. They're about as big as a bread box. You put your compost in there. When it's full, you go to Meadow Farms, drop it there. Do they take yard waste too? They used to.
They used to. I'm not
Yeah.
sure they-
Yeah.
Yard waste does not go in the food waste.
Yeah, it's two separate things.
They
but-
take yard waste, but I'm not sure what the terms are.
Right.
You have to make arrangements, you know, my landlord gets a big dumpster and he puts all his leaves and stuff and they actually come and take it, but he has to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a paid service, yeah. Whereas if-
A couple bags and they say, you bring a lot, they're nice enough to say you can dump them in the back.
Yeah.
You kind of have to.
For a resident of Lee, though, it's free for you to dump your
Yeah,
kitchen waste there. So, and you don't have to be worried about separating anything out or anything like that. So,
What's it called? Meadow Farm.
Meadow Farm, yeah.
No paper. They won't take paper anymore.
Oh, okay.
That's the rule. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
no
don't be doing what I was doing
food
here.
waste. It's all
Just food waste, yeah.
Food waste can go there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing that I do at home, I have a couple different things. I have piles. I have places where I just leave things. I call it my rot pile. That's for things that have seed heads and stuff that can't go into regular composting. It's mostly just yard waste. Then I have a kind of a bin, a box. And I have that because we tend to get rats, because we have chickens and neighbors have chickens, and so they come in to get the grain that's fallen and things like that. And I built that bin on a hard surface and with very heavy lids, and the rats can't get in. So that keeps the rats out of that. This would also be rat proof, so you wouldn't have a problem with that if you're living in a town. When you're out in the country, that's not such a big problem. It's just I live right in town. So I have 2 sides to that, and I fill one side up, let it sit, and then I fill the other side up. The other thing that you can do is in the fall, so for instance, here's you can't really tell what it's going to look like exactly, but this is a compost bin that can be up to this big around, and it has a nice little peak cap. It also has great airflow and stuff like that, and it's very easy to remove the compost at the end of the year. You just lift the thing up, and it's just right there. You scoop the compost up and use it. So by the end of the summer, that's full of weeds and different things that we've picked out of the garden, not the seed heads, but just all of that stuff. And so what I do, some of it's really nice at the bottom, and the stuff at the top is some of it's just been thrown in there the week before. But in October and November, I take everything that's in there, I spread it out on top of the garden beds. Then I get leaves from a neighbor who chops them all up for us, and I put like about that much leaves on top of that compost, and I just leave it over the winter. In the spring, when I go back, there's maybe a broccoli stalk or like a stem of a broccoli plant or something that hasn't deteriorated, but the leaves are now this thick, and you can't see any of the composting vegetable matter. So it's amazing. It's just a really, really easy way. And then I start over. I have an empty compost bin, and I just start throwing things in it again.
So one of the challenges we have where we live, and you might not have it, is I put leaves all over our raised beds, where I chop them up before I do that. And then we get big winds,
Yeah.
Oh,
and the winds blow all the leaves off the beds.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you have that problem here?
we don't.
Yeah.
We get a wind in the garden, but I think we have a fence around it, and I think it breaks up the wind because we didn't have any problem with the leaves blowing off. But I totally get what you're saying, and in that case, you might want to reverse it, and you might want to put the leaves down first, and then put the heavier, wetter compost on top of that, and see if that makes a difference. I don't know how that would be, but you could.
How it would work.
Yeah, you could try it. Or I'm trying to think.
Well, they dry out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, without actually. I mean, you could try. The other thing you could try is you could put some cardboard on top and put some rocks on top of that, and just let the snow and everything, just kind of. If the cardboard hadn't decomposed by the time that you're there in the spring, you just throw that into the compost. So nothing's lost, but it keeps those leaves from. And there's always, it's amazing how much compost we have available to us to use. We do. Just the boxes that we get, like if we go to the co-op and we take a box and we do that once a week. Suddenly you have all these boxes. It's actually amazing to me how much cardboard there is available. And if you don't have access to cardboard, then you can call somebody like Henry's Electric, and you go to the area where they put all their boxes when they're there, and they will let you take a box away. And that is enough to cover a huge area. So there's always plenty of places to get boxes, even if you don't seem to accumulate them like I do. me find my, oh, here it is. So, any questions about the kitchen waste tips? I know I'm probably forgetting something, but. Erica was wondering, this isn't part of this class necessarily because it's not necessarily a lazy way of doing compost, but you can actually buy online, you can make these yourself too, I have made them. You can actually raise worms in your house, and you just throw your compost into that, and it's amazing. So, yeah, well, it's amazing. This is just for anyone who happens to be listening. It is possible to do this, and I eventually gave my worm farm away to a friend because I got tired of taking care of them. It's not like you have to take care of them a lot, but once a week you need to feed them. You need to make sure that they have enough bedding, which is usually just ripped up newspaper, and they're very forgiving.
We're never home, so.
You're never home. Oh yeah, so that wouldn't work. No. Yeah, that wouldn't work.
These are regular, not huge, regular worms.
They're called red wigglers. They're not the Asian jumping worms. They're something else. They're more like regular earthworms, and you can buy them online and get them delivered.
And then they reproduce pretty quick themselves?
They do. They do reproduce pretty quick, yeah.
Can you buy a waste bin online?
A waste bin, like a compost bin? Sure. So the compost bin, we have a rental, a short-term rental, and the compost bin that we have is it's like a farmhouse looking like enamel. It's probably 2 or 3 quart size, and it has a lid with a carbon filter in the top. It's just a piece of, it's just infused with carbon. So what happens is, if it does get smelly at all, it kind of absorbs the scent. Yeah, so I got that, online. It wasn't very expensive. It's kind of cute looking. So yeah, you can definitely get those, and it holds depending on your household habits. For us it would be way too tiny. It'd be like,
I live in actually a schoolhouse.
Oh, a schoolhouse. Okay.
Yeah, behind the locker room.
Oh, okay.
On School Street.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yep.
And yeah, we do have porches, but we don't have a lawn.
Yeah.
So I think a small.
Yeah.
kitchen
Would probably be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is if you have a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it, and you haven't had time to take it to Meadow Farms, you just have that on your porch, a little 5-gallon bucket, you just throw it in there, put the lid on, and then that just sits there. It's definitely going to not smell great after when you open it. When you don't open it, it'll be fine. So that's also a great way to do it. So
What's it smell like?
it smells rotten. Have you ever walked around New York City and you pass like a sewer grate or something, and it's like, ooh, that smells like old food. Something's rotting there,
The plant stuff, though, that's
Not really, mine doesn't smell like that.
Not a lot. It's when you start adding different. Yeah, you start adding different things. It's not necessarily a bad smell. What happens is that 5-gallon bucket, if it doesn't have air circulation, and it gets wet, because all you're throwing in there is all your wet stuff. So that's why it starts to smell. It doesn't. If you have it in a bin like this, almost never will it be smelling.
I'll probably just throw my banana peel.
Bring it, yeah. So that is our class for today, and thank you all for attending. I appreciate it very much. I won't. I will.
He's probably going to win.